this is the third and the final part of this series. Over here, we will be discussing about the recruitment side, how it goes up, and how do they process up our applications and all this stuff. So for the guest for this episode is we got Peter Schwacker over here, who has his own company. Along with that, he does recruitment as well.
How to define cybersecurity is...
That would be my first question.
Yeah, I mean, cybersecurity boils down to protecting the value of an organization from negative risks in terms of computing resources, in which there is an intelligent adversary. So we're not concerned with people just screwing up. If we're to be security, there has to be some human being on the other side who's trying to do harm. If it's about mistakes, right? If it's about bad architecture, it's about things just failing. That's the Knox problem. That's IT's problem, and it's challenging on its own. But in our case, we have somebody who wants to do us harm, wants to do our clients harm, and wants to not be found, which is critical in all of this.
All right.
So that's a sketch. It's not much of a definition, but it'll do.
Yeah. All right. And moving ahead, so this episode is based on the recruitment side. So we'll be sharing the insights on the recruitment side. So this question would be like, what is an entry-level job what someone can go for if they want to gain experience in cybersec field? Like, what are the key roles they can go for, starting job profiles which someone can go for?
There aren't entry-level jobs in security. They don't exist. Now there are entry level jobs that are adjacent to security. I mean, there are the occasional outliers where there are tasks that need to be carried out that do not involve a lot of trust in the employee, and where mistakes are either hard to make, or if you make a mistake, there's somebody to deal with it. The closest you get to that is identity and access administration. So there are, in most organizations, there needs to be somebody who hands out access and who makes sure that the people have the access they need. They look a lot like support desk jobs, and so I think it's best to assume that your first job in IT, your first job is not going to be a cybersecurity job. You need other ones first, and I say other ones because it usually requires a significant amount of just work experience before you get into security. But the idea, there are a lot of people out there saying that it's not true that there aren't entry level jobs, or like we need to create more entry level positions. Like I would love to hire people with no experience. They're cheaper, frankly. And they're easy to find. It's really easy to find people with no experience. But cyber's not that different from other fields. Like I would never hire an entry-level surgeon to do my brain surgery. I would never hire an entry-level attorney to defend me in court. Why would I hire an entry-level cybersecurity professional to monitor for intrusions? No, I need somebody who at least understands IT, business, and in IT in particular, that you got to know networking. I talk to a lot of people who've been through training, who've been through courses, done boot camps, people have master's degrees. They don't know how TCP/IP works. I talk to a lot of people who say, really want to do the work and will study very hard at things that don't teach them how systems administration works. They don't know how Linux works. They don't know how, the fundamentals of these things. And the industry, the cybersecurity training industry, is guilty of, I won't use the F word. There's a 5-letter word that starts with F. But I think it borders on, it's really problematic what's being sold to the people. But the problem is, like, now what? What do you do? So we can talk about that.
All right. Yeah, that's the one. And how we can be identifying, like, what are the desired certifications in terms of if I go with like UK and world market, what are the basic certifications which are sure should be needed for a particular job role? Like supposedly if I go for like a SOC analyst, what are the particular knowledge or what are the particular information they should be needing? And along with that, what certifications they should be needing?
Yeah, for SOC analysts, understanding of networking, particularly how how to read TCP/IP packets is really useful. It's really important. Not because you're going to read packets, not that you're going to do like not that you're going to analyze packet traces or flows with something like Wireshark or something like that, but you have to understand how TCP/IP works so that you can interpret firewall logs, so you can understand what's coming from here and what's going there. Directionality is important. Being able to understand what those logs mean requires a foundation in networking, foundations in system administration. So that's what I see missing all the time, right? If someone's watching this and they've gone through my technical interview, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And good interviews will ask questions about these things. If you get the job and you don't understand how networking works, you're going to fail. But as far as certifications are concerned, I really like the CISSP. If you have a degree, you need less work experience, and pretty much any IT experience will do. The CISSP is the gold standard, and the information it contains as it pertains to security models and theory like that, really important. A lot of people disparage the CISSP. I think it's great. Does it need updating? Sure, I think. Although I took it in 2002, but I'm hearing it's pretty much the same.
Okay.
The security is big too, right? There's a lot of different parts of it. If you're in assurance and audit, which actually is less mission critical than other areas, and security, like SOC analysts actually have a role to play in compliance and assurance. The CISA from ISACA is really useful. I learned a lot from it. There's a lot of things I didn't know when I took the CISA, like I think it was like 3 years ago. Short of that, if you don't have the time, Security Plus is good. But before that, I really like the CompTIA certifications. I'm not wild about the fact that they require research these days. But you got to know how computers work. And I'm not exaggerating when I say a lot of people who get into this field and they don't really know how computers work. Let's start with the A+. Now you'll learn how to fix printers, or at least I did. I don't know if you're going to do that all day. But people attack printers. I've seen it. So start with the A+, move on to the Network Plus, Linux Plus, Security Plus. Also, a lot of security is projects. Project Plus is pretty good. It's not the PMP, but CompTIA has this way of creating like introductory certifications that are somewhat they're somewhat similar to like the more expensive ones. So those are important. There's a lot more. A lot of this, none of this is regional, by the way. Like the only thing about UK is its proximity to EMEA, and that means GDPR. But that's, ISACA has some stuff around privacy, but that really becomes the domain of a data privacy officer, and you can lean on them.
All right. So next question would be like, what is the difference between like exactly a couple of places I see like the same post, same job profile from the same company is posted on two different sites. Like suppose it like go for like LinkedIn jobs, and the other I go with like Indeed. So what would be the difference in that one? Is it like the same or is it like something else?
Yeah. So when I started doing recruiting with my company, and I say this all the time, I'm not a recruiter. I just happen to be doing a lot of recruiting at the moment. It's hard to get out of recruiting because there's some money in it, and it's relatively easy. But it's not easy, but it's easier than like project-based stuff from a business perspective. But There really isn't a difference. If you see the same job posting in multiple places, it just means that the recruiter is trying to get a greater reach. I mean, the recruiters are trying to find people, and the more places where they can post a job, the greater their chances of finding the person they're looking for or the people they're looking for. Now, there's a lot more that we could talk about when it comes to why a post exists, who's posting it, what their intentions are, because sometimes the company's not looking for a job. They're just looking for a candidate. They're doing what's called pipelining. And when you're pipelining, what you're doing is you're feeding a database so that when the need comes in, when the order for somebody comes in, they're ready. Because timing and recruiting from a hiring manager perspective is a very big deal. I do that routinely. I talk to people all the time for which I do not have a job, but I never tell them I do. I'm honest about it, right? And that's the key. I tend to then hire people who are already in my database because I can react quickly. I already know that my relationship there. So, we can talk more on that topic if you like.
All right. And the next one will be like security certifications. There are like a lot of security certifications which are expensive. So how someone from like a recent graduate or someone who's been working and took a break from the work and they resumed their study, means they're starting with their masters right now. So how can someone that would be like shelling out a lot of money on certifications as well?
Oh yeah.
So how can we tackle up that one? Yeah.
Yeah. So
is it like we have to do it or just because?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there's certification programs that are crazy expensive. Like SANS Institute offers what I think are the best technical certs around for cyber anyway. They used to be expensive. Now they're prohibitively expensive for most people. Now they have like a work study program. And some people go through that, but those cost like if you add in hotel and the exam fee and all the rest, you're up to like $8,000 to $11,000 for the main ones. And so if you're going to go out of pocket for that stuff, you better have deep pockets, or your employer is covering it. So that's something to consider, and they do sometimes. That happens. I like the less expensive ones because, if the choice is between like scraping the money together for the cert and studying for something that's less expensive, take the latter option. Now, one that I really like a lot, LinkedIn Learning. So for example, I make a point of I never stop taking courses in something, right? And in fact, almost every day, I work on a LinkedIn Learning course, and it's not always tech. Sometimes it's like I took some courses on logistics last month. So I know something about like intermodal transportation and stuff like that. I will take classes in programming, even though I never do programming. I take classes in legal stuff, and certainly I do. Sometimes I do security stuff. Usually it's to evaluate courses for other people, but in that case, what I'm doing is every day I'm doing a little bit more, and I can post that on my LinkedIn. It's more of an ego hit for me. Nobody reads it like I do, but it keeps me going. So sometimes that's important. Yeah. The purpose of all these certifications is mainly to get the interview with the hiring manager, right? To get past the gatekeeper, if there is one. And oftentimes that's the recruiter. Because recruiters trying to do two things. They're trying to find people, and they're trying to screen those people in order to maximize the time that the hiring managers have to spend. Most of them don't know security. Some of them do. Like I've worked with some marvelous recruiters, and one of the reasons I decided to take on recruiting as a line of business is because I've worked with some really great ones and hired some of the best hires I've ever made were through recruiters. Those people know security. They happen to pick it up through recruiting, right? And service delivery and things like that. But most recruiters they don't know it. They don't know the difference between like an application security analyst and an auditor, a security auditor, and a SOC analyst, and a CISO. They don't know the difference, and so they have to go on the certifications. For example, I don't really know pen testing. I don't particularly like it. It's just not my thing. Love pen testers. I don't know how to evaluate them. So, if somebody comes to me and says, I'm looking for a pen tester in Mexico, which is where I do most of my stuff, I start looking for certs, and then I start asking. I ask other people to evaluate them. My friends will do it for me, but it's really difficult to evaluate talent if you don't know the domain, and most recruiters don't. So you have certs. They vary a lot. Like the CEH, not so hot. There are other certifications like the OSCP stuff, better. Ideally, you look at people's published works, right? And so that's one way to look at it. Another is forget about the recruiter. Don't target the recruiters. If you have the ability to interact with the community through conferences, through video, through chats on the thing that this is going to get posted on, and you can capture the attention of people who are hiring managers or no hiring managers, you bypass the recruiters. And the recruiters, like the internal recruiter, gets notified that for process reasons. But I routinely interview people who have good looking certs who don't know how to do the job.
Okay. And next one is like I've seen like a couple of places where they ask for like essential skill and desired skills. How would they be defined, and what are those? What's the difference between them?
Be skeptical of job descriptions. Here's how job descriptions get made. I want to hire somebody who does a security thing. HR says, I need a job description. Give me a job description. I'm like, I don't have one. I hate writing job descriptions. Almost everyone hates writing job descriptions. I'm sorry. Everyone hates writing job descriptions. Like 100% of the world hates writing job descriptions. That's categorically correct. And so what you do is you say, I don't have one. HR, could you just give me one? Or you look on your own website and you go, copy that. And then you just add your stuff to it. So the job description that's going to get posted has a bunch of junk on it that you didn't bother stripping out. And these sort of snowball over time. This doesn't always happen, but it often happens this way. So you have that. The other thing is that in the same way that recruiters look for keywords in profiles, the algorithms will match what's in the job description with the people out there, and the more keywords you have in the profile, the broader a net gets cast. So the essentials tend to matter. Like people pay attention to the essential stuff, and then the nice to haves are, who knows. The problem is that the overall problem is that hiring managers don't get any training on job descriptions. I've actually never even seen a decent how to write a job description document, and I've looked. HR people don't coach them, right? There isn't a LinkedIn Learning course on how to write a job description. Maybe we should make one, right? And so they're no good for most of the time. And by the time you get to the interview, much of the time, everyone's forgotten what's in the job description. There might be an evaluation matrix that gets created. So when people are doing the interview, they have a place to take notes. I have one, right? But my evaluation matrix is not necessarily closely connected to the job description, because my goal of the job description is get the job posted, get some candidates, some resumes in the door, some profiles in the door, so I can then evaluate them. I'm going to make decisions from what I see there, and most people recruiters will look at the two, right, and might take the job description seriously and the list in it, because you always go to the bullets. They might then compare it, but that's because they don't know the domain, and they can't necessarily read the profile and the resume and make decisions on its own merits.
Okay. There's one more thing. There are a couple of job roles which ask for some some of the other skills which we can't be able to demonstrate. So how is it possible we can demonstrate it via our resume? Means what are those? There are like a couple of, as I can say, they're like, if I go with like I have access, means I have my hands on Nessus vulnerability tool and Burp Suite. So how come I can be able to express that I have my hands on apart from writing? Means what are the other things which I can be through which I can be able to explain it to them that I have my hands on? As I've seen, like there are a couple of job roles which require these two as well, along with the usage of Linux. So how should I be explaining to them rather than writing it on my resume?
In practice, those tools aren't really that. I mean, Burp Suite has some complexity to it. The application of it is not straightforward. Running a port scanner, any idiot can run Nmap, right? There's nothing to it. And in an interview, you're likely to not have that come up. Nobody's going to say, "What do you use Nmap for?" Now, one of my questions that I ask in all my interviews, and I'm just going to assume like nobody that I'm going to interview listens to this, right? Or if they do, they're going to forget it. What's a port scanner? Is one of the things I ask. Like, tell me what a port scanner is. You know how many people flub that question? It really comes down to the basics. Like in security, the basics are everything. Because if you've got the basics and you understand the business context, which suggests that you should learn something about the business, right? If somebody's in retail, it's good to show up with some knowledge of how retail works and some of the terminology and some of the language. When you're interviewing for when you know what company you're interviewing for, you should read up on them, right? Read what's on the website. Show up with questions. If they're a public company, listen to their last earnings call and show up with a question from it. Like that kind of research impresses people, impresses me. It shows that you're really interested. Knowledge of the fundamentals matters a lot. Curiosity is incredibly important, right? And if you can demonstrate that your willingness to learn is not limited to what people tell you to do in school or in a course, you stand out from everybody else. The main problem that I see all over the place is everybody expects that there's a defined path from day one of school to job. There isn't for most fields, and security is not unique in this, right? Any kind of knowledge work, anything that requires adaptation and creativity is about desire to do the work. And it's not about like, are you willing to work 100 hours a week? That's ridiculous. But rather like when you're on the job and you're putting in your 30 hours a week, which is actually realistic, are you really intellectually engaged? And are you going to come up with your own solutions? Or are you the kind of person who expects everything to be spoon-fed to you a course at a time or a subject at a time? Because frankly, like as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's led teams, I need to be able to tell people like, there's a problem. I think the solution might be this. Go solve that. Come back to me if you need something. Come to me for resources. If you run out, if my solution's no good, awesome. That's why I hired you. Get me a better solution. And that's not about like tools, really.